Hispanic Heritage Month is about to come to an end, but we will be continuing our coverage of influential Valley residents. Today, we are highlighting an educator, lawyer, and politician whose work almost a century ago changed the way the state's top law enforcement agency does business. Here's Channel 5's Rudy Mireles.
In 1903, Jose Tomas Canales decided to make Brownsville his home. It's where he'd start a legacy felt through the state and the entire nation. In 1877, Canales was born to Andreas and Tomasa Canales, his birth taking place on his mother's land, inherited from her family who received it as part of the Espiritu Santo grant and occupying most of what's now Cameron County. His family at times feuding with white ranch owners like the famous Kings over property rights would impact Canales' work. 7 years before his election as the only Mexican-American in the Texas Legislature was the beginning of La Matanza, a series of attacks on Mexican-Americans along the border between 1910 and 1920. Professor Christopher Carmona explains one of the key reasons behind the atrocities was similar to what Canales saw his family experience.
The ranch owners like the Kings and Sterlings and all these who were looking to take lands from the Mexican Americans who had land grants and ranches that were pretty prominent for 300 years. And because their families have had these lands for over 300 years, they weren't willing to sell.
Through state-sponsored acts of terror, governors at the time authorized the Texas Rangers to use force to help prominent white families and corporations in taking over the land. But it wasn't until the 1918 Porvenir massacre that saw the rogue group held accountable for their actions. The following year, Canales held an investigation in the legislature. Often introduced as the greaser from Brownsville by his colleagues on the floor, racism was the least of his worries.
His life was threatened during these hearings by a pretty famous Texas Ranger named Frank Hamer, who threatened to kill him. J.T. Canales, went to and told the governor, and the governor just told him to get a gun.
Canales did have friends willing to help. Sam Johnson, the father of future President Lyndon B. Johnson, among them.
He would escort J.T. Canales into the Texas Capitol for the hearings so that he could protect him from from getting shot.
As a senator and later president, Johnson would go on to champion civil rights legislation, some saying his father's friendship with Canales was a major influence. No one involved in the crimes was tried, but it did alter the future of a law enforcement agency accountable to no one.
What the result of those hearings was a reduction of the Texas Ranger force and pretty much a restructuring it. And it lay dormant from about 1920 to about 1935 when they were designed underneath the Department of Public Safety.
Rendered politically ineffective by those who felt his loyalty was in question, he returned to Brownsville to focus on local and national civil rights issues, to include being a founder of the largest and oldest Hispanic civil rights organization in the United States, the League of United Latin American Citizens.
He had a major impact on a lot of the civil liberties that we share today because of what he did here, because of part of his role in working with LULAC and other organizations like that.
Canales Elementary School was dedicated to him for his work as Cameron County Superintendent of Schools. But it stands for more than just a reminder of his legacy locally. It's also a reminder of what he's done for Hispanic people around the state and in our nation. In Brownsville, Rudy Mireles, Channel 5 News at 6.